Now what for you? You won't go chopping and never chop. Hey, you can't make at the dance they go.
Hey.
Hello everyone. My name is Lanre, your trusted IELTS tutor. Welcome to the IELTS multi-step program. Today we're going to be touching on something that is quite important in the writing process for the IELTS: proofreading. I've discovered that 7 out of 10 test takers who write the IELTS usually fail the writing section just because they did not take time to proofread their work. So today's video is one that you definitely want to watch, and the video is divided into 3 different sections, so watch out for the timestamp for those 3 different sections so that you can fast forward or rewind to the section that is quite peculiar to you. Before we begin, I'd like to take us into a definition of what proofreading is, and I'd like to take the liberty of reading that directly from a scholarly website. What do we have here? Proofreading is the final stage of the writing process when the paper is evaluated for mechanical correctness such as grammar, punctuation, spelling, omitted words, repeated words, spacing, and format. So that is the basic definition of proofreading as it applies to the IELTS, and that's what we're going to be facing today and what we're going to be analyzing how to go about it. Like I said earlier, this video is going to go in 3 sections, and the 3 sections are: first, the definition of proofreading, which we've done now. The second thing is, why should we proofread? And then finally, we're going to go to the structure of proofreading. And by structure of proofreading, I mean, how do you actually approach the task of proofreading your written work in the IELTS? There's a definite structure for it, which I will share. So do stay tuned to this video and watch till the very end, because you don't want to miss any part of those tips. Why should you proofread? Why is it important for you to proofread? Why is it necessary for you to proofread? There are 3 basic reasons why proofreading takes a very important space in the IELTS writing. The first reason is this: mistakes will definitely reduce your writing band. What do I mean by that? The more mistakes you have, the more errors you have in your IELTS essay, report, or letter, the lower your band score would be. Now, I'm not talking about the overall quality of your writing. You might be a good communicator. You might write a very good essay. You might write a very good letter. A lot of ambitious vocabulary, all the T's crossed and all the I's dotted. And then you go ahead and you have a lot of errors, a lot of avoidable errors inside that piece of writing. What you will have is a band score that is reduced and that is not commensurate to the effort that you've put in it. That's the first reason why you should proofread, because mistakes will definitely reduce your overall band score in the writing section. The second reason why you should proofread is because errors are made because of speed. Remember, the IELTS is a time test. So you have 40 minutes for your writing task 2 and 20 minutes for your writing task 1, which means that you are most times or most likely rushing through that task. In rushing through the task, there are a lot of mistakes that could come up. There are a lot of errors that could come up. For example, I've seen test takers write the word the, T-H-E, as T-E-H. Not because they could not spell the, not because they do not know the correct spelling, but because they were in a rush. And when you're in a rush, our brain seems to deceive our eyes. So your brain tells you that you're writing the word T-H-E, and then your eyes would see that you're writing T-E-H, but what your brain will record or register would be T-H-E. So because there's a tendency for us to make mistakes when we're in a rush, we definitely need to take a second look, and if possible, a third look at our piece of writing before we submit. And the final category, or the final reason why we should proofread our work, is because of errors that stem from uncertainty. Most times when you are expressing yourself in the IELTS, when you're expressing your ideas, when you're expanding your opinion, when you're buttressing your views, we come across words, we come across expressions that we want to use to say what we mean to say, but we're not so sure about. We're doubtful of the meaning of those words. We're doubtful of the usage of those words. We're doubtful of the spelling of those words. The point when you are writing in the IELTS is not when you are fixing that. Because most times when you're writing, your only concern is to get down your ideas, is to get down your thoughts. You're not concerned about how correct they are. You're not concerned about how unsure you are. You just want to just get it down. Now, because we cannot be 100% sure when writing a 250-word essay of all the words that we've used, there are going to be errors that would stem from our uncertainty, errors that would stem from our doubt. These errors are there. The best time for you to correct those errors, to review those errors, to address those errors is when you are proofreading. So ladies and gentlemen, these 3 reasons tell you or show you how proofreading is an integral part of the writing process in the IELTS. I've seen test takers who wrote essays that would originally or automatically go to a band 8 and they ended up scoring a 6.5 or a band 7. And then when you look at that essay or when you look at that report or when you look at the letter, you will discover that it is riddled with errors that affect the overall quality of the writing that they have submitted. You do not want to fall into that trap. You do not want to be one of those people who would go home feeling bad for having put in so much effort into a writing piece and then getting a score that is not commensurate to the effort or to their level of skill in communicating. So what do? How do you go about proofreading? What exactly is proofreading? What does it entail as it relates to the IELTS? This is the part of the video where we'll deal with that. So what is the structure for proofreading? When you're going to proofread in the IELTS, it is different from you just picking an essay and reading it word for word. No, you must start with the end in mind. You must have a desired goal. You must have a desired aim in proofreading. So what are your aims in proofreading? 3 things. 3 things basically should be the focus of your proofreading process in the IELTS. First is your overall structure. You're proofreading your work to address the structure of your writing. The second thing that you're proofreading there is your vocabulary, your word usage. Did you use the correct words? Did you spell them correctly? Did you repeat too many words? Those are the things you're checking on, the vocabulary. And finally, grammar. So, 3 things that are the focus of your proofreading process: your overall structure, your vocabulary, and then finally your grammar. And those 3 things must be taken one after the other. The first thing you're starting with when you want to do your proofreading process is checking the overall structure. What do I mean by overall structure? Remember, in the IELTS, one of the most important marking criteria is your coherence and cohesion. Coherence means that everything in that writing piece is relevant, it is logical, it is related to answering the question or the task that has been set for you. While cohesion means how well linked together is every part of your writing. Are the sentences, are the words linked properly? Are the sentences properly linked? Are your paragraphs properly connected? In checking your overall structure in the IELTS reading, in the IELTS writing, in checking your overall structure, what are the things that you should look out for? If you're checking a task 1 writing piece, let's say a report or a letter, what are you checking? The first thing that you're checking in your overall structure for writing task 1 is to check if your introduction contains an overview sentence. An overview sentence is a sentence that harmonizes or summarizes the main trends in that particular visual information that you've been given, be it a graph, a chart, a diagram, or a map. Does it have an overview sentence in your introduction? Does it have a description of the task in your introduction? Does it have 2 or 3 following paragraphs that address specific elements of the question? Your first paragraph, your first body paragraph is addressing the main trends or the major details in that visual information or in the data provided. The second paragraph or the second body paragraph is addressing what? The comparison and the contrast that are relevant that you have identified in that writing. And then you might have a third paragraph if you feel or if you need to buttress or you need to address some more details. And ensure that for those body paragraphs that are specifically dealing with different sections of the writing, they do not repeat unnecessary information. And then you have a conclusion that also restates your overview or summarizes or just concludes by summarizing all the major trends. That is for checking the structure for writing task 1, academic writing. For checking the structure for general training writing task 1, what are you checking? Your introduction must contain an introduction of yourself, that's the writer of the letter, and a description of the task or a statement of the purpose of writing the letter. Basically, what you're doing there is rephrasing the question. And then the following paragraphs should respond or should be direct responses to the prompts that are listed in the question. For general training writing task 1, it usually looks like a speaking part 2 cue card. It has specific prompts that determine the structure of whatever you're going to write in that letter. For your writing task 2, how do you proofread or how do you review the overall structure? Your introduction should be an executive summary. If you need more light on this or if you need more information on this, please visit our trove of videos that we have on this channel and you would see where we dealt specifically with the writing in the IELTS and where we shared the writing structure, and we went ahead to also even illustrate how to apply that structure to writing an actual essay. The videos are there. Watch them, subscribe, join our channel, and you are in for a world of value. Now, to go back to what I was talking about, in reviewing the overall structure for the writing task 2, you're checking your introduction to be an executive summary. What's an executive summary? It contains what? It contains all the major information that is going to be expanded later on in the essay. It must have a thesis statement that states your stand specifically and that gives the reasons for your stand. It should also have a structure statement that tells us exactly what you're going to be doing in the essay. For example, this is an example of a thesis statement and a structure statement in the introduction of a particular IELTS writing task 2. So let's say, for example, the question says that many people believe that zoos should be shut down as they are mismanaged, while others believe that zoos have a positive impact in society. Discuss both views and give your own opinion. Here's what my introduction would look like. I could start off by saying that animals are an essential part of the planet Earth, and we must, as a matter of fact, preserve them. For many people, they are of the view that zoos or places where animals are kept are irrelevant or unnecessary in the society due to the high level of mismanagement, while others believe that zoos should be an essential part of society as they preserve wildlife for future generations. Personally, I'm of the opinion that zoos should be kept open as they not only preserve wildlife but also generate income. In this essay, I will examine both views and also provide my own opinion supported by reasons and examples to illustrate. Full stop. That is the structure of an introduction in the IELTS. So what are you looking at in the following paragraphs in the IELTS? If you're checking for structure, you're checking your topic sentences. The first sentence of each paragraph should be checked. What are you checking there? You're checking if your topic sentences carefully or perfectly captures the essence of the main message in that paragraph. And what do I mean by that? Your topic sentence should contain the main point that you're going to develop later on in that paragraph. That way, you'll be able to quickly, just by reading your introduction, the first sentence of each of the paragraphs, you'll be able to quickly determine if your essay has the perfect structure that responds to the question that has been set in the task. And that is what you do when you're checking your structure. The final thing you're checking in your structure is your conclusion. You must conclude well in the IELTS. You must end your essay on a very good note. And how do you conclude? You summarize the reasons that you've stated in the essay, and then you go ahead and you probably make a prediction or you make a recommendation just to end it on a very strong note. The next thing that you are checking when you're proofreading your work in the IELTS is to check for vocabulary. Lexical resource is the third most important criteria for assessment in the writing section of the IELTS, which means that your vocabulary must be top-notch. When you are checking for vocabulary, what are you checking actually? Your spellings. You're checking if your spellings are correct. Your spellings should be correct. You're checking if the words that you have used are the appropriate words. Now, people use a lot of ambitious vocabulary but are not appropriate in the context in which they've been used. An example is these two words, amount and number. While they are both synonyms, they cannot be used interchangeably in some context. You cannot say the amount of people who like football. No, it will be the number of people. Number there is the appropriate synonym for the word amount, for that concept of identifying or counting units of the people who like football. Your words must be appropriate. That's the only way that they can be effective. Effective vocabulary means using the right words that say exactly what you mean to say. Your words must be appropriate. You're checking for that also too when you're checking your vocabulary. And the final thing that you're checking is you're checking to see if you do not repeat words. Repetition of key words or concepts in the IELTS will reduce your scores. So what do? When you look through your work and you see that a particular word is repeated over and over again, you have that word twice in paragraph 1, 3 times in paragraph 2, 3 times in paragraph 3, definitely there's a problem. You need to do what? Find alternative ways of expressing that concept, or just change the word completely, or you just paraphrase. Paraphrasing means expressing concepts or words in your own words. You break it down into phrases, you break it down into sentences that say exactly what that word is saying without repeating that particular word. Those are the 3 things that you're checking for your vocabulary: spelling, appropriate words, and then repetition or repeated words. For grammar, which is the final area or the final area of focus for your proofreading exercise, what are the things that you're checking? Now, grammar is a quite peculiar area because if you're making errors in grammar, chances are that you don't know better. So how do you correct things that you do not know the correct version of? Here's a tip I have for you. Please, when you're checking for your grammar errors, ensure that you change the things that you can. The ones that you do not know are errors, the ones that you cannot identify that are errors, leave them. You're probably going to miss them in the first place. So why kill yourself over that? But you see, the ones that you can change, the things that you can identify to be errors, do make an effort to change them. If you were going to write an essay and make 10 errors before, and you go ahead and you proofread and you reduce that number from 10 to 6 or from 10 to 5, you've done a good thing. That way, it means that if you were going to get a band 6.5 before, you would probably be landing at a band 7.5 or a band 7, which is not a bad thing. So, when checking for grammar errors, what are the peculiar things that you must focus on? Verb tenses. This is a non-negotiable area that you must review. Your tenses, words that have to do with time, are one of the most significant pitfalls that test takers have in the IELTS. Are you using the appropriate tenses to say the things that you want to say? If you're writing a writing task 1, chances are that you're using the past tense because the visual data given to you usually occurs in the past. I'm not saying that this is applicable for every question. It's a case-by-case basis. But most times, 7 times out of 10, it's usually going to be in the past tense. Use the appropriate tenses. Check to see if your tenses are aligned. Check to see if your tenses flow. Check to see if your tenses are appropriate. Another area that you should check for when you're checking for grammar errors or grammar mistakes is number. Number has to do with what? Singular and plural. A lot of us make mistakes when it comes to singular and plural in the IELTS, and we do not know. And when I say we do not know, it has to do with singular and plural as it relates to verbs, not to nouns. Singular noun, boy. Plural noun, boys. Singular verb, go. Singular verb, goes. plural verb go. So you would see that the rule is reversed for verbs, while for nouns, the plural nouns take S. For verbs, the singular verbs take S and not the plural verbs. This is something that if you know you have a challenge in it, please do read up on it and just review so that when you are there, be intentional about checking for those errors. What other areas are quite important for you to check when you're checking for grammar errors? Prepositions, words like on, off, to, for, by, at, in, underneath. These expressions are expressions that really throw up a lot of challenge for a lot of test takers. So check if your prepositions are correct. Check for your commas. Most importantly, check the first sentences of all your paragraphs where you use connectives. Connectives like to begin with, connectives like on the other hand, connectives like furthermore. Ensure that you put a comma after you use those connectives. I've seen a lot of people make mistakes in this area, and no matter how beautiful your essay is, you're definitely not going to get a really good score if you're making basic mistakes like this. Check for your commas, check for your punctuations. And if you do know that you have a problem with punctuation, what do? Be intentional about how you use them. Please, it's very, very important for you to identify these errors and also change them. And one other area of grammar that is not quite common, but people make mistakes for, is word order. How did you order your words? Someone just wrote a letter for me today and they said something like brand zest soap. No, the Zest brand soap. Yeah, so they were talking about a company called Zest. And that company manufactures soap. And then the person went Zest brand soap. And I told them that that expression is wrong. Zest soap, simple. Why do you have the word brand there? Okay, and when you have the word brand there, will you put that before Zest or you put it before soap? These are the questions that come up when you are talking about word order. Are you using the words in the appropriate order that they should be ordered? Are you using the words in the appropriate order that they should follow when you want to express yourself? For adjective, there's a word order for adjectives, but I'm not going to go into that grammar class now so that I will not bombard you with too much details. So, there you have it. Those are the areas that you should focus on when you're proofreading, and that is the format or the structure of your proofreading. Start by checking for errors in structure. That's the overall structure of your writing piece. Check for errors in structure. Then from there, move on to errors in vocabulary, word usage, and then from there, move on to errors in grammar. All of this should be done in 5 minutes or less. Which means that your 40 minutes task for your writing task 2 is not 40 minutes spent writing an essay. No. What you basically have for that 40 minutes duration for that essay is 5 minutes to do what? To brainstorm, to look at the question, jot down your points, 30 minutes to write the actual essay, and then 5 minutes to proofread. If you do not proofread, you're setting yourself up for failure in the IELTS. And this is a definite fact that I am telling you, because as someone who has gone through thousands of written pieces in the IELTS, I've discovered that proofreading seems to be one of the major challenges that a lot of test takers have in the IELTS. So proofread. If you do not want to be one of those who would be a testimony or who would be an illustration in Mr. Lanre's class as those who did not take that instruction. I'll take it again. When you're proofreading, you start from the overall structure, then you go to the vocabulary, and then finally you land on the grammar. Please, one last tip. When you are proofreading your work, ensure that you try to do what? Vocalize what you can see on your paper. How do I mean? When you're looking at your essay, do not just skim through it with your eyes, assuming or believing that you will catch all the errors. No. 75% of the time, our ears will catch more errors than our eyes will. So when I say vocalize, do I mean disturb the people beside you? No, I do not. This is me vocalizing. Proofreading is the final stage of the writing process. If you can read my lips, you would see me actually forming those words, but the sounds are not coming out. but you know what? My ears can actually hear that sound that I am vocalizing. That way, my ears will be able to catch if something there does not sound right. And you see that expression, it doesn't sound right, might actually be a lifesaver for you in the IELTS. Do not just rely on your eyes alone to catch all the errors. Also, join your ears to the mix, and then you have a better chance of identifying errors, catching them, and then reviewing them. On the last note, when you're proofreading your work, you're doing two things. The first thing you're doing is you're correcting errors. The second thing you're doing is you're improving your work. So when you're checking for vocabulary, this is when you can now see some words that you've used before, and then you go, oh no, I can use ambitious or better vocabulary to express this. And then you change it, you erase it, or you cross it out, and then you write the correct or the new improved version of that word on the top of it, or you erase it and you write it where it should be. Till I come way again next time, I remain Lanre, and I'm your trusted IELTS tutor who has been giving you tips and strategies that are ensured to improve your chances of success in the IELTS. And this is the station, this is the channel to be if you intend to write the IELTS just once and get the desired score that you need for either your immigration process or for your study process. Do practice. Remember, there's no way that all of these tips and strategies will benefit you if you do not take some time out to practice and use it on your own. Because as they say, practice leads to perfection. And I look forward to seeing you on the positive side of success for the IELTS when next you join us. Thank you.